The rulebook doesn't say you have to tackle this journey of life alone. These are the times I make those connections with others, so we can all take a look back while we all move forward. This is the Dependent Independent Podcast. MiniSode. Hey there, subscribers. Thank you for downloading and listening to MiniSode 44 and a half of the Dependent Independent Podcast. I'm your host, Nick G. This is a podcast about making connections, looking back while moving forward. In these minisodes, I get my subscribers caught up on what they missed in our last episode, what's been going on with me since our last episode posted, and what you can anticipate in future episodes. You can follow me on Twitter at dependent_Nick, and you can email the show when I dare you at thedependentindependent@gmail.com. These podcasts post on midnight every Monday. It's a Monday night now. It's getting kind of late. And our full episodes post the same time every Monday, and they alternate. So you get a minisode, full-sode, minisode, full-sode. You can follow our Facebook page at the Dependent Independent Podcast page, where we post everything and anything that has to do with the TDI podcast. And these minisodes are recorded live, I guess, for YouTube. So these videos, the video of this podcast you're listening to, will post on Wednesday of this week, only a day after. This podcast posts on any podcast app you listen to, whether it be on iOS or Android. If you'd like, and I'd love you to do this, feel free to rate the show on iTunes or whatever podcast app you're listening to. I like feeling good about myself, so give us some feedback. So every time I do these minisodes, I make this empty promise that I'm going to keep it under 15 minutes. So I'm going to see how fast I can get through this, because every time I say I want to keep it shorter, I make it longer. And I want it to be a minisode because then it becomes a macrosode. So I took some copious notes to make sure I stay on topic. And let's begin. Episode 44, Jess Brannis, Drinks with Jess. What an amazing experience. It's amazing how in starting a podcast or even hopping on Twitter, I was able to connect with somebody, and within 9 months or 10 months or 11 months after I met that individual online, they're in my house having a delicious Mexican dinner from Mariachi Loco in Hamilton, New Jersey. And she got to know my wife. Jess Brannis got to know my wife. And we did one of the coolest episodes on dating. She is a dating coach. She is an enormous personality in the LBGT community. She's also an author. Please feel free to listen to episode 44. All of her plugs and everything she's working on are in the show notes. And the best thing about it is, when I started this show, this was kind of my thing. And I've been able to bring my wife in. But now, if you listen on the last few minutes of that episode, Jess has asked my wife to be on her podcast, which, I mean, that's surreal. The fact that I'll be able to listen to a podcast that my wife's on, that I have no idea how it was recorded. I'm so anxious for that, Jess. And I know you're listening. Let me know when you want to coordinate that with Meg, and we can get that going, because that'll be awesome. So since I posted my last episode, two things have happened that I want to talk about. One is, everyone is talking about this, is this presidential election. Now, I've never taken, other than mentioning it on a minisode or doing a political episode that we did last year with my buddy Nick Polito, where we talked about all the candidates. We went on a website and we just kind of went down all the candidates. And I haven't listened to that episode. My promise to me and Nick was I would listen to it after the president is nominated. What a fucking shit show, dude. It's unreal. It's the most elaborate job interview on the planet, and we're stretching it out for like a year and a half. I'm not somebody that goes on Facebook. And by the way, there's a lot of hate in this country on Facebook. People go on Facebook. It's not just like, when I look at this as a job interview, I started my career in recruiting, and my job was, even in sales, I had to interview sales candidates and build my sales team. And that's a long process. That's a long process of understanding yourself and understanding the person you're with and understanding if they fit in the job that you're looking for and they can perform and they're being honest with you and so on and so forth. But it's really about experience, right? Like how is what they did, how does it apply to what you'd like them to do? Now, we all know I think most average Americans understand that for those 4 years, that's a big job. Anyone who's seen House of Cards, you understand how big that job is. And I'd hate to say that, but that's like enormous schooling. If you haven't seen that series on Netflix, watch it. But minus the murder and all that, spoilers and all that crap that happens with Frank Underwood. It's an enormous job interview that requires a lot of understanding if or if not, that's terrible English. If the candidate or the candidate cannot do the job when they start on day one. And it is impossible for me in my brain to look at any other candidate other than saying, if they're hired, do they know where the bathroom is and can they do the job? I'm not going to sit here and tell you who I want to vote for, but if you listen, I'm sure you can guess who I want to vote for. But for all of you out there, understand that this election will end. We'll all have to be Americans again, and understand that we have to accept the decision and not keep anybody in suspense, and accept the decision of who is our president, and continue to be Americans that trust that our three branches of government and the way the government works will continue to work in the way that's best for the American people. That's I just won that one, by the way. That was ingenious what I just said. I've never been a political guy, but I am a leadership guy, and I like paying attention to leadership, and experience and application is something that's very important, and humility is very important in leadership. So my mind's made up on who I want to vote for, and I ask that you vote with your head and your heart and understand, and your conscience, and just make the best decision you can, whether it be one candidate or the other. It doesn't matter. The most popular person, because will win the popular vote, and which is one's leaning towards the other. If you go online, you could see that. And I'm anxious to really see where it ends up. And I'm an American either way. I like when people say, like, well, what if Trump wins? Okay, and what if Hillary wins? But God forbid you said, well, this person was. What if this person wins, and that person you're talking to assumes that person's going to lose? But it's incredible to me. Like, even my kids are going to remember all this election. Like, it's like playground talk that they talk about. What did Trump say? It's nuts. It's crazy. And I hope as Americans, we can kind of get away from this and just go back to being what makes us great. I guess that's what Trump says, make America great again, which would be when this election's over and people aren't fighting all the time and spending so much time trying to convince the other person to vote for their person. It's crazy to me. It's just nuts to me to get someone to vote for you because you say how shitty the other candidate is, rather than saying, this is what I can do. Can you imagine a job interview like that? You walk in and you're like, hey, by the way, thanks for having me for the job interview. I was in the waiting room before. Get some real shitheads out there, and I wouldn't hire this person because he looks like shit. I wouldn't hire this woman because of this, and I wouldn't hire this guy because of that. But I'm your guy. So, I just pretty much eliminated all the shitheads out in the lobby, so you have no choice but to vote for me. That's no way to make a decision. And I expect everyone. I don't expect everyone you do what you want to do. I know what I got to do, but it's really awesome that we have the ability to be able to do that in this country. So that's out of the way. I mean, it's impossible. I haven't really mentioned it. I think I mentioned it in a minisode before, but how ridiculous and crazy that actually is happening. So if you turn on the interwebs, after you download the show, or after you've downloaded the show on whatever podcast app you have on Tuesday morning, and listen to it while you're driving, you're probably seeing something really shitty and crazy. And who knows what's going to happen in the next 2 weeks. We have no idea. So the second thing, my wife, which we mentioned in episode 40, that she and her friend were getting her master's degree, and wouldn't you know, she's done. She got all her assignments done. And this week I threw a party. I guess I threw a party. We had it catered, a local place in town called Kitchen 19. Came in, Linda, she's unbelievable, put a great seafood menu together, and we had Megan's closest friends, both the girls she went to high school with and the girls she works with. And we had them all at the house. Many of bottles of wine were drunk. And the one thing, it's funny because for the last 2 years, my wife has been engrossed in her education. For 2 years, it was, I need to get online to do a post. I need to get online because I have to do a paper. I have to cite this or that. But when Megan started this journey 2 years ago, the one constant was every time Megan did a paper, she'd always ask me to look at it. Now, at first, I would read it, and it was totally foreign to me. The way she was writing, I'd never seen Megan write that way before. And I was pretty impressed. I teased her for it, called her a big nerd. But it was amazing how she could put these thoughts together, incorporating all this material and all these studies to prove whatever point that her instructor was asking her to make. And as the year went by, or the 2 years went by, anytime she asked or had an opportunity to submit something before she did, she would ask me to look at it. And sometimes I perused it and went through it, and I might not have noticed everything. Maybe caught a typo here or there, the way she and I think that's why she wanted me to proofread it. a sentence that was off or to run on. But as it ended, I saw Megan changing. Megan became this educator that wasn't just somebody who, went to school every day, but someone who spent an enormous amount of time trying to apply what they were learning into her everyday teaching, and which I don't know how often people do that, but it says a lot for an educator that's willing to say, no matter how hard this is, I'm going to go and educate myself. I'm going to learn how to teach better. And how she described her days. And I think I heard stories about her, or she would tell me things about how she applied things at school. And it wasn't really about that bratty kid that broke up the class, which I've been hearing about those stories for the last 17 years. And we might have touched on some of those stories on episode 40. But the fact that she was becoming this unbelievable educator, like seriously a master of what she does. And I got to admit, the one thing that I'm going to miss is being able to see my wife shine like that. I'm not in a classroom with her, but seeing her papers, last week she emailed me her paper and had me look at it. And I went through it, and I'll be honest, it was like 5, 6, 7 pages, something like that. I read every word. Like I was just enthralled in like every word and how she was describing it, and I stopped when I was done, and I was like, I'm never going to be able to do this again. I'm never going to be able to see a piece of my wife's work in this articulation of words and meanings and themes and application that I was teasing her 2 years ago, calling her a big nerd. But I'm so very proud of her. We had a great time. I actually wanted to, which I haven't done this, I wanted to play you in the midst of the party. I thought it would be a good idea to have my wife's friends, anyone who was willing to do it. I put batteries in the recorder that I mix this show on, this show that you can listen to or watch on YouTube. So subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way, every time I post it, you get a little email that says, "Hey, there's a new minisode up." So I brought the recorder down, and I got these women that were slightly inebriated or massively inebriated, depending on how many glasses of wine each of them had and who was driving, that if they had anything nice to say. Now, I recorded 15 minutes, and I would probably implicate a lot of them in the 15 minutes if I recorded or played this and recorded this on this show right now. In the 15 minutes, if I can just kind of just wing it, just ballpark it on what we talked about, dildos. We talked about blowjobs and Botox. We talked about, and the girls listening will understand the context. We talked about nipple sizes. Talk about locker room talk. This was like full blown. Like I was one of the girls, man. I mean, it was surreal. And then it went to I think the girls are going to have a Secret Santa dildo party, which is cool. Why not do that? I'm a guy, but my wife's going to have some fun and laugh her ass off at that party. But I was able to salvage one thing, and there was tons of other things. It's funny in saying it out loud, I'm actually holding some of it back because I don't want to say all the stuff and then we're going straight up, not explicit, we're going straight porn in this minisode. But there was one thing that our friend Tara was able to, and this is the one thing I'm able to play out of the 15 minutes, the one thing that isn't incriminating that I could play on this show.
Huh? Are people listening to this right now?
Well, I have to determine whether or not I want to put it on my show.
Okay. All right.
I think the meaning of life was sex, so.
Well, I don't think the meaning of life is sex, but Megan, we talk about Megan. All right. Well, good job. Congratulations on your master's. Very good. It's hard work. You did a good job. All right. That's all.
And that's it. That was the cleanest thing that I could grab out of those 15 minutes. Now, girls, if you're listening, and this show is dedicated to the late night ladies. I think it was Amanda, Amy, Steph, Tara, Kelly, Sherry, Meg, because she stayed up. I hope I'm not. Who am I missing? I think Melissa. All you ladies, I had the best time. I'm so happy to have you over. That's the latest Megan and I stayed up in a long time, and I think it was awesome how comfortable everyone was in sharing. I wish I recorded the whole thing and started with hey listeners, thank you for downloading and listening to the craziest episode of the TDI podcast. But unfortunately, out of all the things I recorded, that's the only thing I could put in there, and technically my mission was accomplished. So those are the two things that happened since my last episode. What you can anticipate in future episodes. In episode, let me see if I get this right. Well, I'm going to get it right because I know my shit. Episode 23 and 29, I proceeded to tell my listeners a story of my first job out of college. And since we started this podcast, there's these bookshelves. No, what are they called? And bookends? Bookends. We have the first day of an interview for this sales company I joined, this crazy wacky sales company after I got out of college, and then my first day on the job. I thought I'd be able to get through my entire career there, the 2-year career there, but I realized it was just too long. There was so much to talk about, and a close friend of mine, a college friend, a fraternity brother of mine named Ron Bauman, who lives in Philly, he experienced the same job, the same like wacky pseudo multi-level marketing company. And I thought it'd be great to have him on the show to tell my audience about how crazy those 2 years were. But I realized when I talked to him at lunch that he only spent 3.5 months in the business. And that's a blink compared to what I did. I did 24 months. And it sounds like a prison sentence, but it was a ridiculous, weirdest thing. And so the bookend, one end, I have you on the story of me getting the job, and then we played it episode 20, and it was a bonus episode a few weeks ago of my wife, me moving in with my in-laws, and my wife flying out to Chicago and convincing me that that's not something, well, I was already convinced, but convincing me that that's not something I want to do for the rest of my life. But you have these bookends, but nothing has been filled in between. And since we posted those shows and I teased it, I think it was late last year, a lot of my listeners want to hear the rest of it. So this weekend, my wife and I are going to get on mic, and we're going to talk about how my address changed 8 times in 2 years in 5 different states, and I didn't make any money. I weighed about 135, 40 pounds. I looked like I was 13 years old, and it nearly killed me, but all for the sake of making money because someone told you could. And that's going to be episode 45. We are on our way to 200 episodes of the TDI podcast. These minisodes kind of fit in between, so I encourage you to listen to back episodes. I'm already thinking about episode 50 and what we're going to do. Like I said, you're a subscriber. Thank you for listening. If you're not, and this is the first time you're coming on the show, hit that subscribe button. Go beep, beep, beep. Hit whatever subscribe button you have on whatever iOS or Android podcast app you listen to. And every time we post a show, it will hit your podcast feed, and you can join me on these one-way conversations on these minisodes. Listen and watch. Listen to the podcast. Watch us on YouTube. I'm trying this thing. I guess it's working out. I mean, there's a decent amount of people that watch them. Part of me is I've already started it, so I don't want to stop. But this TDI podcast thing is blowing the fuck up. We're everywhere. You can follow us or follow me at dependent_Nick on Twitter. You can follow our Facebook page, which is all TDI, and be part of that community, and that's the Dependent Independent Podcast page. You can subscribe on our YouTube channel at the Dependent Independent Podcast page, and you can email the show, and I dare you, at thedependentindependent@gmail.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for getting caught up. Remember to vote. Remember to vote. And whoever you vote for, it's the best choice you can make. This is Nick G, the host of the TDI Podcast MiniSode 45. Oh, no, I'm skipping. 44 and a half. And I'm out.